Alright, guys, my name is Alex Williams, and today we're going to be discussing the social judgment theory, my personal favorite. Alright, let's get down to the basics. This theory was developed by the psychologist Muzaffar Sherif. It seeks to develop predictions based on what types of messages will persuade an individual, and I personally think it's the best because it addresses how likely an individual is to change his or her opinion and why different people are more or less likely to do so. That's my favorite thing about this is not only does it explain how likely the person is, but it explains why, and it goes very in depth into all this. And it's in depth because it is composed of three different categories: anchors, ranges, and ego involvement. And each one kind of plays off of the former to really get an in-depth, detailed theory. Alright, anchors, the first one. Anchors are previously held beliefs and attitudes. In other words, it's how a person feels about a subject before a new idea about that subject is presented. Of course, people develop anchors while they're growing up. They pretty much get ideas about things based on what they see and growing up and just, what they learn about it and all that good stuff. They're what people compare to all other opinions, beliefs, and information, whether it's about a specific subject or whatever it is. Presented ideas that agree with a person's anchors will be more likely to persuade them, whereas ideas that are far from a person's anchors will be less persuasive. For an example, if a person is taught all their life that eating chocolate cake is bad, the idea that chocolate cake is bad is that person's anchor on chocolate cake. And a bakery that tries to sell that person chocolate cake will probably fail in that persuasion attempt because they grew up their whole life, with their parents teaching them don't eat chocolate cake. So, the idea of buying chocolate cake is far from that person's anchor. And that's very important. That's pretty much our core beliefs, our core morals, how we look at the world. We base them all off of our anchors. And the theory goes and splits ideas up into three different ranges: the latitude of acceptance, latitude of rejection, and latitude of non-commitment. Of course, with the definitions, the acceptance range is the range in which someone is most likely to accept a new idea. Latitude of rejection is a range in which someone is least likely to accept a new idea. And non-commitment is people don't really care and they consider more before they make a judgment. The LOA is nearest the anchor, LOR is furthest from the anchor, and LON is in between, of course, because an idea that falls within the LOA is close to the anchor and people most likely accept that new idea. For example, if a person absolutely hates chocolate cake, the idea of buying one falls in the LOR because they will not buy the chocolate cake because they hate it. On the flip side, if a person loves chocolate cake, the idea falls in the LOA because they will buy it. And if a person doesn't really care if they like chocolate cake, vanilla cake, strawberry cake, whatever, the idea falls in the LON. And that makes it very simple. It's a very clear, concise explanation for why people make decisions. And the ego involvement goes and explains the size of each range. And ego involvement is how important an issue is in someone's life. It is how passionate a person is about an issue. With high ego involvement, the issue is very important, and the person is less likely to change his or her beliefs. With low ego involvement, the opposite is true. The issue is not important, and he will, change his beliefs. Like, I don't really care about, chocolate cake, so, sure, I'll eat it. Why not? This means that the LOA is very small when ego involvement is high, and the LOA is very large when ego involvement is low. For example, if a person's mother's dying wish is that her son never eat chocolate cake, the ego involvement would be very high because, that's his mother's last wish. So when it comes to chocolate cake, the son will probably never buy it. He's like, the bakery's like, hey man, buy our chocolate cake. The son's like, no way, dude. This is important to me. This is what my mom said she doesn't want me to do. I'm not doing it. I'm not budging. So, yeah, that person's ego involvement is very high. The first article I discussed or researched was called Engaging Students in Social Judgment Theory by Jessica Mallard. She pretty much just gives a nice, brief, clear overview of social judgment theory. She gives a good definition. She explains that this theory attempts to explain how likely a person might be to change their opinion, the probable direction of that change, their tolerance toward the opinions of others, and their level of commitment to their position. And she creates a little classroom activity. I think she was a teacher. You put three signs labeled LOA, LOR, LON for the three ranges, And she gives each student a worksheet with opinion statements, and they are to provide their opinion on each one and label how important it is to them. And they discuss their findings. It's pretty simple exercise, and students can very effectively be taught about this theory using this activity. And then the next article is called The Thinnest Portrayals of Fashion Models, Perceived Body Dissatisfaction in Self and Others by David Prabhu. This article explores how young women view thin, ultra-thin, and oversized models and how it affected their body image. In the study, female undergrads were assigned to view one of 3 sets of images: ultra-thin models, average-sized models, and there was a control group which viewed no models. Then, I'm not sure how they quite evaluated this, but they evaluated their perceived body dissatisfaction. And the results are as follows. Body dissatisfaction was only increased in viewers of ultra-thin models, and even then, only how they viewed other people. So, long story short, the people who viewed the ultra-thin models and then looked at other people, they looked at other people in a less favorable light. But the people who viewed the average-sized models and didn't view any models at all, their opinion didn't change at all. So, this proves that a society has an anchor of that being thin is preferable, and anyone who is not thin is, not good. In this, The Effects of Argument Equality and blah blah blah, long title by Hee Sun Park, this article discusses how ego involvement interacts with the social judgment theory and dual process models. Of course, as we know, according to social judgment theory, high ego involvement makes a person more resistant to persuasion. But in dual process models, high involvement people are susceptible to persuasion when the argument quality is high. That's the conclusion of the study. The more involved a person is with the issue, the more social judgment theory. We know that. According to dual process models, when people are highly involved in a subject, strong arguments are more likely to persuade them versus less involved people. So if 2 scientists are discussing chocolate cake, and they both love chocolate cake, if one person is making more sense than the other, the person who's not making sense will be like, oh, you're right, I'm going to change my opinion on this. But if someone doesn't really care, they're not going to change their opinion. They're like, whatever, who cares? Because they tend to get bored. The next one, and this another long title by Miriam Hansen, the study aims to contribute to the understanding of students' behavior and participation in blah, blah, blah. Long story short, she put up a study where students received emails from other students requesting help, and the nationality of the requester changed every time. The results found that the ethnicity cue influenced the wording of the participants' responses as well as their willingness to help, which I thought was pretty interesting. So they had a German and a Chinese name, set up, and they sent an email request for help from a German and a Chinese student to a German student. And the German student's wording changed with each response. They were less likely to help the Chinese student, which makes sense because people have an anchor for people similar to them, and if they can more closely relate to one another, they're more likely to engage in friendly social interactions. In conclusion, the social judgment theory is a tool that can be used to ascertain how likely a message will persuade and why. Its applications are wide, and the fact that this explains why different people are more or less likely to be persuaded makes it an accurate tool, which is why it's my favorite theory, personally. It's very detailed, using different categories such as the ranges, and it offers an explanation for each one. So, what I like about it is, it has anchors, which makes sense, and then it has those ranges, which kind of which provides a range for where an idea falls and how close it is to an anchor. And then it goes more in depth with the ego involvement and explains the size of each range. And it's really good. Thank you all for listening and watching.